Good evening, moms. How are you today? Super excited about today. We have my dear friend Meredith Parente joining us to tell us about her empty nest experience. So let me see who's joining us here in the chat. Okay. Give us a few minutes. As you're coming in, please let us know where you're watching us from and how long you've been an empty nest mom. Alrighty. As you're coming in, please let us know where you're watching us from and how long you've been a mom. If you're new to in our community, please let us know. If you're not, just say hello as you usually do. And today's a really special day. Starting our first series, my dear friend Meredith Parente, a church friend of mine who we met. My kids actually were 4 and 6 at the time. And we've known each other for that long.
Mm.
And during that time, both of us were, let me actually have both of us, her kids were, I believe you had older kids at that time when I met, they were adults. And now my kids, like 20 years later, we had not seen each other in years. My kids were 4 and 6. And then we run into each other at a church function. And then we reconnected. And here we are, like more than 20 years later, here being able to connect. And I'm just so excited that she's willing to come and talk to us and let us know about her experience of being an empty nest mom. And I'd love to hear what she has to tell us about her experience. One of the things she was saying, she has homeschooled. She's a mom who homeschooled all her kids. You guys, give a shout out for Meredith homeschooling five children, and she is active, super active, has a very active life. And I'm really looking forward to us hearing her story and her walking it through what her journey has been as an empty nest mom. And let's get started here. So Meredith, I just really wanted to know how when you started it as a mom, what did you expect the experience of being? This is one thing we're not told. Is we're taught to have childbirth. We go through Lamaze classes. We go through all these things.
Mm.
Never ever prepared for that period. What that period is going to look like when the kids leave our house. There's no preparation for that. And I know some of the moms in the community are really struggling with letting go of that phase of their children, and it's a really sad period. And it's like other moms are asking that, does it ever end? There's this feeling of longing, wanting to be around your children ever move. So can you just tell us a little bit about your experience, what that was like? And yeah, I'd love to hear your experience.
Well, thanks, Irene. Thank you for inviting me. It has been a delight to reconnect with you and to just try to remember, how do we know each other and how long have we known each other and enjoy those moments. So, yeah, I've been an empty nester for a while now. My oldest is 45. My youngest just turned 31 this summer, which makes me wonder how that's all possible when I'm only 40. It's kind of strange.
Um,
Just joking, of course. But yeah, so I have been married for 48 years. My husband and I met 50 years ago, so we're very blessed to have that kind of history with one another. we both had a relationship with the Lord when we met, but we were really not knowing what that meant when we first met. So we had to kind of grow into that together. But we were blessed then when our first child was born that we both did have a relationship with the Lord, and we really wanted to please God with our lives. So I remember when I was in the hospital with our oldest, and I was in the hospital room by myself, and I just laid him out on the bed, and I said, God, I know he's not mine, he's yours. I know I just have him for a little while, but I just ask you to help me to just raise this child to be the person that you want him to be. And so I guess in a way, I've always kind of had an open hand with God. There are definitely some things that I've said, no, God, please don't let that happen to them. But for the most part, I always saw myself just as a caregiver for a season. I do feel like raising children and having a family was the best part of my life. I didn't feel like it was a sidetrack from something better that I should be doing. I felt like it was very much what God had for me. And I don't think there's anything more important that we can do. I think I'm a little bit surprised as I hear the struggles women go through with the empty nest, to think, well, how come I didn't experience that like they did? And one of the people on our chat had mentioned at one point that she really struggles with empty nest, but her daughter, who's now coming into that season, doesn't seem to be struggling at all. So we all obviously have very different experiences with that time. I think there's some reasons, like you said, I homeschooled my kids, so we were together all the time, and we did things outside of school together. We were on the worship team at church together. We did a lot of those things together. But I think maybe part of it is with my oldest being so much older than my youngest. By the time my youngest left, I already had grandchildren. I already had like 9 or 10 grandchildren. I was helping taking care of my mom, who was in her upper 90s or upper 80s. So I volunteer for a lot of things. So I just had a very busy life. So I feel like in a way, them growing up and going out on their own was we did it. They survived. I survived. We made it through this, and now we're on to the next thing, which has been the delight of having grandchildren. So I can see why it could be much harder for other people who maybe, were so much invested in their children. I think sometimes homeschool moms do invest a lot in themselves, in their children, but I feel like sometimes if you're not, if you're a stay-at-home mom maybe, and you participate in their classroom activities, if they go to school, you're that soccer mom, you're these other things that in a way you're maybe even more invested than I was. They were just part of my everyday life, where for you were really, going out of your way to be involved in their lives. So, I can see that why there could be some really big differences in how we feel about that season.
That's remarkable. But Meredith, one of the things I have to say, like I absolutely have always admired, is your patience. Like how you're such an amazing listener. Can you imagine the patience in order to raise children, especially if you're homeschooling them? You have to have such patience to work with your children, not get frustrated. And I know that's one of your, true gifts that comes really easy for you. It seems like,
I don't know about that. So I remember before I had children, I prayed and asked God for patience, and He gave me children. And it was like, oh, this is how you learn patience, is by having to need it. So, yeah, so I do appreciate the opportunity to hear people's stories and to be a good listener.
Now, the next thing I wanted to ask you, and I know this is big, kind of tying to being an empty nest and grieving. is the relationship with adult children. This is an area which is a sticking point where, and I personally know, and this for me was a point where I was like really afraid like my kids went to college, not to like to smother them, for them, not for me to smother, for them to feel as though I was smothering them. And
Right.
where there's a strange when your kids like go to college and all of a sudden they break ties with you, and there's quite a bit of that happening, unfortunately. And so I guess I wondered what, like, for what you learn from your lessons with your adult children, what have you learned? How have you learned to still that you're always their mother? Obviously, it's a lifelong thing, but then how do you have you learned to give them space to make their mistakes? Sometimes you can see things before they happen. How have you been able to navigate that process of letting them continue to be your children advisor and being just going from being mom and being the caregiver to advisor in chief, if they choose to let you be that? So just like to tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about your insight on that, because that's been it's a big source of sorrow and sadness for moms.
Mm. Well, Irene, I know you can relate a little bit. I have 4 boys and 1 girl. So our relationships are very different between the boys and girl. Um, my daughter decided just in the last 6 months that we need to talk once a week. So that's been a blessing, that she has 10 children, but she gives close to an hour's worth of time to me a week just to talk, because she appreciates the opportunity for us to care about one another's needs, and she knows. This is what I felt from my mom, was I knew my mom loved my children more than anyone in the world besides me and their dad, and so I think she knows that about me, that I adore her children, and so I'm a safe place to come to talk. We spiritually are on the same level. Both of us are really all in when it comes to knowing and serving the Lord. So I think that makes it a good relationship. The sons, just by nature, are not as big talkers. So communication, is very different with a son. My oldest was never a man of many words. He had a reputation for being able to answer just about any question with a yes or no. So, it can be difficult to have deep conversations with him. So my attitude toward my adult children is they don't owe me anything. I pray for them. I look for opportunities to serve them. I look for opportunities for us to be together, but I know they don't owe me anything just because I'm their mother. And I think that helps maybe by, releasing them and allowing them to decide what the relationship is going to be like. I am very blessed that they all do want to have a relationship with me. I can't imagine what it would be like to have children who don't want that. And I can tell you, I don't think it's always your fault when that does happen. Our culture at this point says that there are toxic people and you should cut them off. And I think that's really unfortunate, that people would feel that way. Obviously, there are people who are evil and do evil things, and those people you definitely need to guard yourself from. But I think for the most part, we call evil things that maybe are just uncomfortable. So I have different relationships with each of my sons. One has been through a great deal of difficulty with divorce, and so he has spent a lot of time talking to me, just having somebody that he can just kind of, talk about his emotions and how he's feeling and what things are happening. But the others, they're busy with their lives. They're at that stage of their lives where they don't have a lot of time to give to a conversation. So I recognize that. I know I was that way when I was their age. So I have kind of low expectations. And then when they do something like stop by when they're out because they were in the area, it's like, whoo, I get this, special visit. It makes me feel very special to be thought of in that way.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Meredith. So now I will gonna move on to like going from the point where you are, the caregiver, and then how did you start? Because this is the thing. It's like we have all this time to get trained, and then our kids exiting our lives. But there's that point now you have to like confront this new reality where you've spent your time taking care of children, your wife, like doing all these roles. And then it's sort of like sometimes moms can feel lost. They don't know where to start. It's confusing. You don't know what to start. And then it's awkward to have all that time spent. And it's like 18 years or more. That's a long time to just be worrying about other people. They you stop listening to, sometimes they stop listening to their own voice and they can't figure out where to start even navigating that process.
Yeah.
So for you, how did you start like having children and especially being that involved as not only a stay-at-home mom, but also homeschooling your children? How did you now go from that phase and then to eventually have them in your 31 plus year old now was I forget, is it a girl? I don't remember.
Michael, that's our baby boy.
Okay,
yes.
Boy, yeah.
2 boys, a girl, and 2 boys.
So when he moved on, how did you navigate? Like, how do you feel your space? You're so busy with them. You're super, super involved. Like, how did you transition to starting to focus on yourself or focus on other things that you possibly might have put on hold?
Well, for starters, I have really wise friends. So I had a friend who was older than me who was going through this and ahead of me. So I could kind of see what she was doing. And I don't know, somehow I just got the idea that I just needed to pray and ask God for the next thing. I'd always prayed about what to do with the kids. So why would I not pray and ask him, what should this next part of my life look like? Should I volunteer more? So I actually gave him some good ideas. And there's this saying, if you want to see God laugh, tell him your ideas. So he didn't pick any of my good ideas. I thought about mentoring. I thought about working. I thought about making quilts. I gave him some good ideas and he didn't choose any of them. So by doing that, by praying and asking God for the next direction, then that consumed a lot of my time to continue to pray into it. Because you don't just ask God, what should I do? You ask him, well, how should I do it? And what's the next step? And what's the next step? And what's the next step? And so that kept me pretty busy. And then there were a lot of things that I did. I was a stay-at-home mom. I did homeschool my children, but I volunteered at church in different capacities. I was busy in the community in different capacities. So those things were just continued to go as that time came when I just had less responsibility to my children. So I think all of that probably made it easier for me. I some of the unhappiest people in the world that I have met are people who focus on themselves, who are always introspective, always, why is this happening to me? All about me. Mm-hmm. I don't think that makes you happy. So I never felt the need to go there and make me happy. I have healthy habits. I think about what I'm eating. I think about exercise. I do all of those things. But I never felt the need to take care of me. You know what I mean? I still have a husband. So I have him to take care of. Like I said, I had grandchildren, thinking about them, what could we do with them? How could we stay connected to them? So those things kind of took the place of having children at home.
Amazing. And so I wanted to ask you about friendships. This is a big thing. Relationships, all this happening at the same time. I know, like, to me, there's some, like, my oldest son. My youngest son was in boarding school, but my oldest son was, went to a school in the school district. And so a lot of the parents I knew through band. Those 4 years of my son being in band and having his section, playing the clarinet, playing the different instruments he played. But then it's like, I kind of felt as though I had something going there. But then when my son graduated, their kids graduated, like over time, that relation just waned less and less. So I guess I would like to ask you, have you navigated that? Because some of the friendships, maybe you may, at least for me, some of the friendships I had, I thought part of it was, like, my thinking was that these are relationships which are going to outlast the connection we have through school.
Yeah.
But yet a good number of them just ended. Then sometimes, like, you might be going a different direction from your friends. And then it's at this age, it can be hard, difficult to make new friends, especially if you happen to move to another. I know some moms who have moved from where they lived, had a really great network. They moved to a different part of the country, and now they're starting over. And it's just really difficult to make friends. So your thoughts about that? I know this has been an area I know you've done you've done a good job of being able to figure out how to make sure you have friends, a healthy network of friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have been just so especially blessed by church family. So, but even there, like you're saying, we moved on. So we were in a church for 14 years when my kids were growing up. We felt it was time to go on to something else, but that meant, kind of moving on from those friendships in a way. But I actually still walk once a week with some of the friends from that season. So again, just having had those kind of relationships that did move on from one place to another. I had a very wise woman. I asked her at one point to kind of mentor me. She was a pastor's wife, and I said, what do you see in my life? I'd like you to speak into my life. And what she said was, I needed more relationships, good, solid relationships with women. And when I pursued that, when I made myself available for that kind of thing, those are the friendships now that have lasted for decades. So that's really fun. And then I've gotten to a point in my life with just being involved in different community things, being involved in different churches over time. I got to the point where I was like, God, I don't think I can have any more friends. I can't keep up with the ones I already have. So praying and opening myself to that, God hears and answers our prayers. And he's managed to help me find ways to make room to get back with you. Some of these new friends, I'm not a coffee drinker. I've decided at this point, I should invite people out for milkshakes because I love milkshakes. So instead of coffee, we're going to try milkshakes now. But yeah, just being a friend is how you make friends. So instead of, saying, oh, woe is me, I don't have any friends, you have to be willing to pursue relationships, how find somebody that either you have things in common with, or find somebody that you have absolutely nothing in common with and see if you can't build a relationship from there. I've done both. Yeah.
Wow. So as we approaching towards the end, I wanted to ask you, if you were to think, if there's anything like somebody who's new, an empty nest mom, they don't even know where to start, what would be like your best advice for moms to get through this part of your life, be able to work through this part of your life? How, like, no instructions, nothing. Like, what would you say? What's a lesson you've learned from your experience, and for your mentors, what's worked for you?
Well, to be honest, I don't know how anyone manages this life without God. So my first recommendation to you is open yourself to the possibility, if you don't know him now, that there is this God who loves you more than you could ever imagine and has good plans for you at this time in your life. And as you open yourself to that possibility, and I encourage you, I read a book not long ago. It was by Arthur C. Brooks, and it was talking about this point in our lives. And one of the chapters, at least one of the chapters, he said, take the time to explore faith. One of his friends is the Dalai Lama. So this guy knows what he's talking about. But he was just saying, take that time. Early in our lives, we were busy. We were busy with diapers. We were busy with cooking. We were busy with running to games. Mm-hmm. Now we're at the point in our life where we can slow down a little bit and we can say, you know what? I need to pursue this a little bit more. I need to take some time and pursue what this looks like, and know that there is this God who loves and cares about you. If you do know him, ask him what's next. And then be open to what he says, mm-hmm. and find some friends to help you pursue that.
That's been amazing, because I think I was so surprised the first time I heard of Arthur C. Brooks, like knowing that is a professor like at Harvard, and just knowing that now these conversations that people wouldn't have, like now it's common that people talk about their faith. That's not just mm-hmm. to compartmentalize their lives, but people do that, and just being ability to do that. That's incredible. Yeah. A lot of people are starting to get the points when you realize like you're not able to figure out there's something bigger than you, some transcendent who's helping you mm-hmm. to navigate, and knowing there's meaning in your life, no mm-hmm. matter what. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Meredith, for just coming to join us. Could you guys just show some love to Meredith for giving us a mm-hmm. moment of the time, just precious time to come spend time with us and walk us through what some of her lessons learned for her children. Thank you. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you. And actually, I didn't tell you, but you were our first guest. We thought we'd just start to do something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because as moms are going through that, you're going through challenges. And sometimes some of the things you even think about, we have struggles we have. Mm-hmm. You may be the only one who's experienced it, because maybe you're too embarrassed to tell other people. The things we live in our lives, we stay stuck. Able to do that. So greatly appreciated.
Could I do one thing, Irene?
Absolutely.
May I pray for us?
Yes, sure.
All right. Father, I just thank you for these women. I thank you, Lord. I thank you especially for Irene, Father, for putting together this platform for women who are struggling at this season, and for those who have something to give, to be able to come together and to encourage one another, to strengthen one another. Father, I just pray for wisdom for Irene as she continues to lead. And Father, I pray for your comfort to just be poured out on these ladies. They gave their lives to bringing up the children that you gave them. And I ask that you would comfort them in this season. I pray that their relationships would be better than ever. That you would show them just how to navigate those relationships with their adult children. And I just pray a blessing on all of them in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you so much, Meredith.
Absolutely.